to ask the first question. Thailand's second coup in a decade has demonstrated what seems to be a greater trend emerging in Southeast Asia. Democracy is hanging by a thread, I believe, in Cambodia and Burma, and has regressed in Malaysia. Never really existed in Vietnam or Laos, and is in peril now in Thailand. In addition, efforts to establish a more effective democracy, as the Royal Thai Army is attempting under its latest coup, is setting a bad precedent and really sending the wrong message. My question is this: is the administration concerned that the deterioration of the democratic process in Thailand is doing just that, sending a bad precedent for the region, particularly in Burma, where the military has been reluctant to live up to its reform commitments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly, promoting democracy and human rights is a key part of our foreign policy, of course, everywhere, and certainly in Southeast Asia. So we look at the coup in Thailand primarily bilaterally and the impact on Thailand itself. But you're right, also the negative example it sets for the region. I guess maybe I'm slightly on the more optimistic side, but I would note that in Southeast Asia over the last 10 to 20 years, I think we've actually seen some significant progress, most notably, of course, in Indonesia, which is a free democracy and will have its elections very soon. Philippines, in Burma, as you mentioned, there's a lot of room to go. I think there's been some significant progress in recent years, but as I said, a huge amount of work still to be done, and we'd rather have positive examples. One other point I might highlight, Mr. Chairman, is that it was interesting to me to see the regional response to the coup in Thailand. I would argue that 10 years ago, none of the neighbors in ASEAN would have said anything. But in this case, certainly Indonesia spoke out, and others did as well, expressing concern and a hope for a return to normalcy and to stability. And I think that's a positive sign in the region. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I think what we're seeing is that democracy is more the standard, and things like coup are less acceptable even in the region than they used to be. And I think that's a positive sign.
Thank you. The military's been largely silent about the whereabouts, and I mean their military, of certain citizens that remain in detention. The National Council for Peace and Order, NCPO, claims it's only talking with citizens it detains to explain to them why the military took over. It also claims most people are detained for only a few hours, while those with stronger political views are detained not more than 7 days. However, over the weekend, the NCPO revealed that it has kept a red shirt activist, Ms. Christuda, in detention for 3 weeks to, quote, help her mediate, restore consciousness, and reconsider many things so that they can adjust her understanding, unquote. Mr. Marcial, can you explain what this means and whether the detention of individuals without charges are in accordance with international human rights standards? And also, even though we've not heard of any detainees being harmed or mistreated to date, at least that I'm aware of, they were all required to sign documents saying that they were not harmed, intimidated, coerced, misled, tortured, or forced to give or commit any inappropriate act before they were released. However, a number of people have said they were subject to intimidation and an aggressive interrogation, and before release issued direct warnings. Don't these actions betray the junta's claims that it's not harming or intimidating targeted individuals? And does the State Department have any idea how many people may still be detained against their will? Is it the administration's planning to address this clampdown on fundamental freedoms by restricting certain engagement activities? So that's a lot to respond to, but you got 38 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we're deeply troubled by the military council's actions. They're continuing to summon and detain and intimidate political figures, academics, journalists, peaceful protesters. We have publicly and in our private conversations with government authorities have emphasized that priority number one for us is to end this practice of detaining people. To be honest, our information is very similar to yours in terms of what's happening, that we haven't seen evidence of physical mistreatment, but certainly intimidation that's leading a lot of people to choose not to talk. This is a problem. I don't know the particular case of Ms. Christuda, but we'll certainly look into it.
If you could look into that, we'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you very much. My time's expired.